Okay, number 3a, we want to simplify and rationalize completely and write our answer in a plus bi form. That means you write it with the real part first, then a plus sign, then the imaginary part. So 3a, we have 1 minus 3i over 4 plus 2i. We need to rationalize this. The reason is because there's a square root in the denominator. You cannot leave a square root in the denominator. And getting rid of the square root in the denominator is called rationalizing the denominator. Okay, so in order to get rid of that square root, we are going to multiply the denominator and the numerator, since that's the only way we can do it legally, by its conjugate. A conjugate is when you have a binomial, two numbers, you change the sign between the numbers. If it's a minus, you make it a plus. If it's a plus, you make it a minus. That will give you a difference of squares. The reason is because a squared minus b squared is equal to a plus b times a minus b. So the reason we're doing this, the reason we're multiplying the top and the bottom by the conjugate of the denominator, is because a difference of squares is the product of conjugates. And so that way, if we do this, we're going to get a difference of squares in the denominator, which will make the I go away because it'll become I squared. And so that will make it -1, and then there won't be a radical, a square root in the denominator. So that's why we're doing it. We multiply the top and the bottom by 4 minus 2i. For the top, we have to FOIL it out. So 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times -2i is -2i. -3i times 4 is -12i. And -3i times -2i is positive 6i squared. In the denominator, because we did this, we will have a difference of squares. So it's going to be a difference, means minus. The first thing is a 4, so 4 squared. The second thing is 2i, so 2i squared. Difference of squares. All right, now we simplify. 4 minus 2i minus 12i plus 6i squared. All right, so 4 minus, we add our like terms, that's 14i, and then plus 6i squared, so 6 times -1. In the denominator, we have 16 minus 2i squared is 4i squared. Now we simplify it even further. On top we have 4 minus 6. That's going to give me -2. And then we have minus 14i. And then 16 minus 4i squared is 16 minus -4. Because 4 times i squared is 4 times -1, which is -4. So 16 minus -4, which will make it plus 4. So -2 minus 14i over 16 plus 4 is 20. I need to notice now that this fraction is not reduced. There's a factor of 2 in the numerator and denominator that I need to factor out. So we'd have 2 times -1 minus 7i on top. On the bottom, we have 2 times 10. The 2's cancel, and we have -1 minus 7i over 10. But we're not done because we need to write it in the correct form. Real part first, -1/10, imaginary part second, minus 7/10 I. So this would be our final answer. Then part B, we've got -7i times 7i. That's going to be -49i squared. That's -49 times -1, which is positive 49. Down here on the bottom, we want to evaluate the discriminant and determine the number and type of solutions. First of all, let's look at the quadratic formula, which is -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. If you haven't memorized this, you have to memorize it. There's just no other way to deal with the situation. You're going to have to memorize it. You'll be using it all year. All right, b squared minus 4ac. This stuff that's under the square root sign, the radical. That is the discriminant. If you find out what the discriminant is equal to, you will know how many and what kind of solutions you will have for your equation. So if the discriminant, b squared minus 4ac, is 0, then you're only going to have one real solution to the problem, to the equation, because it'll be negative b over 2a, because that whole thing will be gone. So it'll just be one number, and that will be a real number. If b squared minus 4ac, the discriminant, is a positive number, then you're going to have two solutions. Negative b plus or minus the square root of whatever that positive number is over 2a. So you'll have a plus and a minus, two real solutions. If the discriminant b squared minus 4ac is negative, then you're going to have two complex solutions, because you're going to have negative b plus or minus the square root of a negative number, which is imaginary, all over 2a. So that's going to be two complex solutions. So those are the three possibilities. Either that discriminant is 0, one real solution, it is negative, two complex solutions, or it is positive, two real solutions. So before you can even find out what b squared minus 4ac is, you have to get your equation into the proper form. So for part A over here, we have 4x squared plus 12x. And if we move the negative 9, add 9 to both sides, we'll have plus 9 equals 0. Now it is in the correct form so that we know what A, B, and C are for our discriminant. So b squared, 12 squared, minus 4ac. We are going to have 144 minus 144, which is 0. And since that is 0, that means we have one real solution. For part B, we have it already in the correct form. You've got A, B, and C. So our discriminant is b squared, so that's negative 4 squared minus 4ac. So that is 16 minus 56, which gives me negative 40. Therefore, I have two complex solutions because I'm going to have a negative under the square root.